Hello there, all my lovely Leos. Thank you so much for stopping by for your monthly in-depth tarot video forecast. This forecast is for the month of June, and I'm breaking June down into two separate segments. The first one is going to be June 1st through the 14th, and then after that we'll look at the 15th through the 30th. So the first thing that we're looking at for you Leos does have to do with your environment. And your environment is any place where you have energy or effort invested. And so for a lot of people, environment does turn up as home, but for others it can be work, it can be school, there can be a lot of different places that this could be. So you want to have a little bit of an open mind about what I'm seeing here. But when I'm looking at your environment, what I have showing up is that there is some change or some transformation happening in your environment. I don't feel like you're changing environments as far as going to a different environment, but I do feel like there is some transformation that is very noticeable within the environment during this time frame. Now, the second thing that I have coming up for you, Leo, has to do with your subconscious leanings. And this tells me that you have some kind of fear that you're really is rolling around in your subconscious. There's something that you're afraid is going to happen. And so I think your subconscious is really having a hard time getting past this fear. We don't want to let our subconscious work with that fear or stay with that fear, because then we end up manifesting whatever it is we're afraid of. So when we catch ourselves, in those little tiny voices in the back of our head talking about this fear, we want to try to turn that direction around, turn that direction in another way, talk about something that is not our fear. Maybe talk about how something else could be what is actually going to happen instead of whatever this is that is the fear showing up here, Leo. Next thing that we have coming up talks to me about two different things. First of all, your learning style, and secondly, your communication style. I do think that there's something that you're interested in finding out about or researching or learning more about, and I think that you're kind of keeping this on the down low. I think very few people know that you're researching this or trying to find out information about this this person or this situation, or who knows, maybe this medication, whatever. There's something that you are wanting to know more about, but you don't want everybody to know that you're trying to get more information on this. Now, as far as your communication style, once again, I have this idea showing up of, not communicating just everything with just everybody. You're being very careful about what you say to who. And I think that when you do communicate with other people, I think that you're really trying to cheer them up or encourage them during a lot of the communications that you have during this time frame. Next thing that I'm looking at does talk to me about your work. So it looks to me like the activity of work is feeling a little bit stagnant right now whenever I feel into this card. But I do think that there is some strategizing going on. There's some planning. So, if things are slow at work, you may be planning how you guys can create more business. Or, if you have your own business and things are slow, you may be putting together plans to change that, to turn that around so that things start to pick up. So I don't see a lot of actual physical, noticeable, measurable activity, but I am seeing a lot of thought going into the idea of bringing in more activity when it comes to work. Okay. Next thing that I'm looking at does talk to me about that part of your personality that is growing or expanding right now, Leos. And what I'm seeing is that there's somebody or there's something in your experience that you used to really enjoy or enjoy the company of, whichever one is appropriate for you. This is a general reading, so it's going to come through in different ways for different ones of you. But anyway, there's something that you used to enjoy or you used to enjoy the company of, and now you're finding that you could sort of take it or leave it. It's not that you despise it or anything, but you're just not really feeling all that drawn to it like you used to. All right, the next thing that we're looking at talks to me about those things that you stand for And so when I'm looking at something that you stand for, what I'm looking at is something that somebody has complained to you about, or has asked you to explain, or has confronted you about, and so you've stood up for whatever this is. And then we're also going to look next at how that person who brought that topic to you, how they feel about you and this topic after you've had your conversation with them. Okay? So when we look at this, what it is that you're standing up for is this idea that things in the past, specifically a particular thing in the past or a particular time in the past, was not so good. You don't have a lot of really great memories about it. And that's what you're standing up for, just this idea that, this was not a good time. It was not a good time for me. Um, The other person, once they've talked to you about this, how they see the situation, they feel like you are looking for a fight, basically. They feel like you're holding grudges from things that are old and done, and that basically you're just looking for a fight there, that you have not moved on from whatever that was in the past. Okay? Next thing that I'm looking at does talk to me about the lesson or the experience as you go through this time frame, Leos. And what I'm seeing is that you are moving away from drama. You're moving away from emotional turbulence. And you are thinking about things logically and detaching yourself from the emotional drama and turbulence around you. At the same time that this is happening, I do think that you're actually getting some assistance from a friend of yours who is helping you to sort of get a different perspective on the situation so that you're able to move away from the drama and the turbulence. And I think that you are just really focused on carrying on your life in a good and healthy and productive way. And then once we get to the end of this particular time frame, we do come into a point where I feel like you're really gaining in love for yourself, gaining in that self-esteem, gaining some strength there. And, kind of picking that back up. It feels to me like self-esteem may have kind of, I don't want to say it's hit the floor, that's too strong, but it may have been flagging a little bit. And so I think that you're coming into a position now where you are strengthening that self-esteem and strengthening those opinions of yourself, strengthening the opinion of your own value in the world and to the other people in your sphere of influence. Okay? So that's what we've got for the first half of the month, Leos. I'm going to take a break, and when I come back in a couple of seconds, we'll look at the next half. Thank you guys for being here. I'll see you in a second. Okay, Leo, we are back, and this time we're going to be looking at the 15th through the 30th of June for you guys. And the first thing that we have coming up does talk to me about your environment. And it looks like things are going very smoothly in your environment. Things are going very well. So I think that you're feeling really good about your environment, and I think that you are feeling like things are happening in a very productive way. So, last time we saw a lot of transformation happening in your environment, a lot of changes being made in your environment. This is basically saying that those changes are working out very well. They're working out exactly the way you anticipated them to, possibly even better. Okay? Next thing that I'm looking at talks to me about your subconscious leanings, Leo. And what you have here is that you have a big decision on your mind, and you're trying to figure out what would be the most fair choice, what would be the best way to go that would be fair to everybody involved. And so your subconscious is really working on this decision. And this decision could have to do with another person, or it could have to do with another group of people, but more than likely, actually, I would say probably another person, and how much contact you actually want to have with them, how intertwined you want to be in that person's life, or how intertwined you want to let them be in your life. So this is a big decision for you, and I think you're really giving it a lot of consideration, especially at the subconscious level. Now, next thing we're looking at does talk to me about communication style and also about learning style. So for learning style, I think I want to start there. It looks to me like there's something that you're learning that really you already have a pretty good idea about, And now you're just kind of learning this more subtle intricacies. You're kind of fine-tuning your information so that you can use this information for practical application wherever you need to. Communication style. I do feel like there is some kind of formal written communication going out. This could be some type of invitation or some type of document, legal document, a contract, or some other type of legal document that is coming out during this time frame. La da 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 da. I do think you're the one that is originating this formal or legal documentation that's coming out, by the way. Now, as far as work, I think you've got somebody that believes in fairy tales at work. I think you have somebody that believes in fairy tales at work. They just think that things go in a way that just is not even close to how things go in reality. So I feel like this could be a boss or this could be a client that is just expecting you to just be able to wave a magic wand and work magic. And so I think that during this time frame, you've definitely got a person on your hands that you have to be able to tell them, you know what, I am not, yeah, I am not the grand high Merlin of such and such, of marketing, of whatever it is that you do. That I can't work magic here. I'm a human. My team is full of humans. We can do a fantastic job for you, but what you're asking is a higher expectation than what we're capable of. And I think that you're having to walk that fine line of letting this person know that what they're expecting is not what you can offer, without putting this person in a headspace that, well, they need to go to somebody else because somebody else can. So you've got a fine line of resetting their expectations without throwing them into straight up disappointment or dissatisfaction. It's a tricky situation. It's a tricky situation. All right, the next thing that I'm looking at talks to me about that part of your personality which is growing or expanding right now. I feel like there is somebody in your sphere of influence that you're really cutting way back on communication with. You may be not communicating at all for a while, but there's somebody that, communication is much slower than it has been. And I think that you are, you're kind of getting used to that. I feel like for some of you it's that the other person is communicating more slowly, but for most of you it's you are sort of backing off of that communication. And I think that even though I think that for most of you you're the ones originating this action, I don't think it's necessarily comfortable for you. And I think that it's something that it's taking some getting used to. I think that you're doing it for a reason, but that doesn't mean that it's comfortable. So it is taking some adjustment. Next thing we're looking at are those things that you stand for, and after that we'll look at how this person that confronted you about this thing or talked to you about this thing feels about you and the situation afterwards. So looking at what you stand for, it looks like you're recognizing that there was a situation in your life where you were feeling restricted or limited, and you are at a point now where you're realizing that that restriction or limitation was purely one that you were putting on yourself. Nobody else was putting that restriction or that limitation on you. All right? Now the next thing is how this other person perceives you after you've had this conversation about these self-imposed restrictions or limitations. And the other person sees you as that basically they see you as somebody who is more of a shooting star, somebody who's not going to be around long or who won't last long. So they don't have a lot of confidence in what you're doing or how you're doing things here. They just don't see you as having staying power is basically what I'm saying. Now, how other people perceive us, may or may not be accurate. Doesn't really matter. What's more important is how we perceive ourselves. Next thing that we're going to look at talks to me about this lesson or experience that comes up as you're going through this particular time frame. And it does look like, I feel like you're returning to basics. There's something that you're doing where you're realizing it's time to go back to basics. You're going back to basics. And I think that going back to basics is making you very successful too. I feel like you kind of feel like you've been kind of wandering down a winding path or led in a wrong way. And going back to basics really helps you get back to solid and get back to security and get back to creating those things that you actually want to create. At the same time, I think that as you're getting back to basics, I think that you are letting somebody know exactly how you feel about them during this point in time. And I think also that there is a big shakeup, and I think that big shakeup has to do with you telling this person how you feel about them. I think that it's a big surprise to them, and it feels to me like you may be surprised at what's coming out of your own mouth. I don't think you actually expected to share this with somebody, so it comes as a surprise to you as you hear it flowing out of your own lips. And then once we get towards the end of this particular time frame, there is something going on that I think you may have had some energy for, some excitement for before. Now I feel like you're realizing that it's not what you thought it was, and you're not feeling as energetic or as excited about whatever this is, whether it's a person, an activity, a hobby, a work project, whatever it is. Now you're feeling a little bit more like, you know what, I don't know if I've even got the energy or effort to extend to that thing or to that person. And so a huge change in how much energy you had flowing around that situation or that person. Okay, so that's where we leave off for the end of the month, Virgos. I hope you find this helpful. If you would like to have a private reading, it's easy enough to book one. All my contact information is listed on my website. Everybody have a fantastic month, and if I don't see you here for a private reading or a private Reiki session, then I'll see you guys back here on the next video. Peace out.